This one is a special edition episode for you and for me that we can revisit anytime big scary things are happening in the news and in our neighborhoods. And we want to help, but we also may be feeling overwhelming or guilty, unsure, frozen, or just completely tapped the F out. But the point is, and we know this is true, that we're all connected. It all matters. What's happening to one of us impacts all of us. If it's not our neighborhood today, it could be next week, next month, next decade. As I've said before, I like to see it like this is an all hands on deck lifetime. We're all needed. And so, what I'm hoping to offer in the next 15 minutes or so is my clearest current thinking on how we can respond sustainably and meaningfully when our hearts and circumstances call for it. So, just to zoom out with a little bit of context here, this message was inspired by the historic flooding that happened in the Texas Hill Country in July of 2025. And I'm actually currently in this moment recording from the Big Island of Hawaii in August 2025, where I'm on a creative retreat with some dear friends. It feels like the perfect place because I'm hopeful that in this setting, recording this message is going to infuse, even across time and space, infuse a bit of this grounded steadiness. So, what I want to explore is just naming and owning your own desired and actual realistic form of responsibility, not as a pressure or performance dictated from the outside. And honestly, I think a performative donation is great because money, it all counts. But I feel like us tapping into our most sustainable and true, authentic expressions of response for ourselves, for our homes, for our communities is the way forward. And so that's what I want to unpack here and just give you some frameworks that you can hang your ideas on or some buckets to help you organize your thoughts around this so that you can decide and choose and build your own menu of how you want to be able to respond when the times call for it. Because there are so many ways that we can respond, and some get put on pedestals and it becomes this weird all or nothing perfectionism kind of thing, which obviously doesn't serve anyone. It's not helpful. So that's what I want to walk you through my own process for identifying your own on her terms response that honors what you can do rather than dismissing your contribution or worse, disengaging entirely. And another part, just because this is something that I do, because it's how my brain works, just to acknowledge that part of my processing is to zoom out and acknowledge that big events like this, they're both devastating, but they're also catalytic. Like what are the sides and the pieces that we may not obviously see, but we can trust and know in our systems that they're there. Like moments like this wake us up. They clarify what matters. They mobilize communities. They remind us how deeply connected we are. And so, yeah, basically this episode is about finding your way to respond without burning out or checking out. Finding your own form of response. And I say it like response hyphen ability. It's not about outside expectations, but what's actually possible for you to where it actually feels like authentic expression and actually a natural extension of who you are. So we're not doing pass fail. We're not doing comparisonitis. It's not an all or nothing weird disaster response perfectionism. Okay, so the things that I was thinking of as I was in and out of sleep and reading headlines and stories about this, two things came to mind. One is the timing of a response, the chronology of care and the chronology of the response, because a lot of times people will think if I didn't respond, at this point, there's a little deadline funnel and a countdown timer on it. If I'm not a first responder, then it's too late. I missed the boat. But that's not actually the case. So I'm just naming this so that we can remind ourselves, you can see a little timeline. There are first responders and thank God for them. The first wave, the visible, whether they're professional or they're just good Samaritan neighbors that are, in the case in my hometown with Hurricane Harvey, like, let me grab a boat, let me get out there, let me start, coordinating rescues and the walkie-talkies and the Cajun Navy and all of these things. Volunteers, EMTs, first responders, absolutely so important. But then there's also the secondary response of coordinating donation drives and meals and on the ground volunteering. And then you got to think there's a midterm and a long term, both physically and emotionally and mentally. And all of that is really important too, because the devastation to a community and the destruction is going to call for a whole lot of creation that could take months, if not years or more, decades in some cases. And likewise with the emotional ripples that are caused, years and decades. It's like if you've ever lost a family member and your family or your community rallies around you and people are coordinating meals, or if you have a baby, it doesn't even have to be, something that's branded as devastation, but just any big milestone, there's going to be that first wave of response. But then the ones who are still checking in months, years later, on an anniversary, like still thinking of you, still checking in, that's really important. And I think we've all experienced that to some degree, either directly or indirectly. And so I'm just reminding us here that there is an entire timeline that has value. And even if your response wasn't right away initially, it doesn't mean that it's too late. And it can actually have so much more impact when it seems like the rest of the world has moved on and you're actually coming in to share your own gifts, talents, and resources in a way when, again, things have moved on, because this is just going to keep happening. Things will be happening and have been for all of time, but we're just now so aware. So, okay, timing is the first main lens to think about. And then the second one is type. So I'm just going to walk through the different types, and it's just a little menu of options just to highlight and bring to your consciousness some ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of yet, that are potentially overlooked or undervalued forms of response, but they're absolutely valuable, they're valid, they're important, and maybe they're yours. And that's actually what feels like, oh my gosh, I could do that. I didn't even think about it. So we're going spiritual, emotional, physical, financial, mental, social, familial, and work related, vocational. That's the overview. Because, of course, what is the thing that people will say? Thoughts and prayers. And thoughts and prayers are important, valuable. Yes, awareness matters. And there's a lot to be said for where our attention goes and our energy flows and all of that. So spiritual and emotional prayer, ritual, candlelighting, holding space for people, witnessing, all of that is important. And we live in a physical world, time and space, things, repairs take money, like the physical elements matter too. So you might be thinking physical, actually donating and organizing physical goods, that's usually important, but then also can be overwhelming if places don't actually have places to put them. But actually hosting people, displaced people, clearing debris, cooking and delivering meals, these are all examples of physical. Financial is pretty straightforward, we know. Sponsoring cost directly, using your business as a giving channel, donating to organizations or mutual aid. Mental, this is kind of what I'm doing. It's something that I default to because I'm like, for example, Hurricane Beryl came through my hometown last year, and my family and I were in Hawaii while my husband was doing Navy things, and I felt helpless. I'm like, what can I do? Well, I have Google Sheets and Wi-Fi, and I can comb through the community Facebook group to find who's sharing. This place has Wi-Fi. This place has ice, because people were out of power for up to a week. These are the fence repair companies. These are the roof repair companies. These are people who can help with trimming trees, and just coordinating. So using your mental skills, capacity, ideas to identify and organize resources can be useful. Even just decision fatigue. Oh my gosh, because people, when there's, especially when it's just a complete surprise, no idea this was coming. There's just so many elements that people can just be mentally tapped out. So if you have that mental capacity to help people make decisions and find and identify resources, beautiful. That is a gift. That is a valuable resource in response. Social. Don't underestimate the value of one social media post, which people often do. But your network, your skills, your reach of connecting people, sharing links, posting, and increasing awareness, no matter how small. One example from Hurricane Harvey, where I was and I've shared this in a blog post before, but I was underestimating the value of me posting and sharing on social media as I was caring for our two kiddos. My husband was out doing a physical response, and I was feeling guilty that I couldn't do more but post. I could just send out a signal and a flare, a road flare from my social media platforms. But later on that year, or maybe even a year later, someone had messaged me on Instagram to say that she was able to help her friend's grandmother get rescued because of a post that I had listed to a rescue Facebook group of people who were doing amazing things, connecting people with actual boats to be rescued from their flooding homes. So I understand it's easy to say just one post. No, it's not everything, but it is something and it matters. So even if that's all you do, even if there's 50 people who might see it, that's 50 real people. And when in times of crisis like this, people are looking for resources, for information. It's like, our brains are online, literally and figuratively, if we can get access, and it's like you can feel so alone and disconnected. So every little bit of information that can get out there actually really matters. So please don't underestimate that. Family-based support, like offering childcare, involving your kids in helping and creating. We were creating buckets of cleanup supplies as a family to send over to the hill country so that the people who are cleaning up had what they needed in terms of the gloves and the wipes and I'm forgetting all the different things that they had requested, but getting them involved so that they understand this is a thing that we do. Also, keeping your own home as reasonably stable as we can, right? So that you are positioned to be able to help. It's kind of like the next step out of self-care, which is not frivolous, it's foundational, because of the old oxygen mask metaphor. You've heard it a million times. But it's not just about us as individuals, but even with our own little family units, if we can kind of keep our house in order and have a plan, a thoughtful plan, then we are better positioned as a family to be able to support our neighbors, our communities, and whoever and wherever. So even if you feel, I don't know, just I hope that inspires you a bit in terms of like how meaningful it is, the work that you do in your home with your family and with your systems at home, because it really matters to the larger community as well. And then vocationally, this kind of ties back also to financially, but through your business, if you have a business, or even at work, you could do a fundraiser. You could be creating an offer to raise funds, donating a portion of sales, offering tools that can help people respond, which is exactly what I'm doing with this podcast. I was like, oh, in addition to donating money and physical things, I'm sharing stuff on social media. What's something I can do? I can use my overthinky brain to organize my own thoughts on all the different ways that people can respond and share this information with you in hopes that it lights something up and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. I hadn't even thought about it. But it's also about building long-term giving capacity. So if stuff like this happens and you feel a little frustrated that you want to give more, trust that that's a nudge of your heart, like that's a desire of your heart, and think, okay, let me use that as inspiration to build my business and my financial overflow so that it's really easy for me to say, I'm absolutely going to be able to direct funds and I want to be able to use my work as a means to contribute beyond the ways that I already do. But for today, for this episode, whenever you're listening in time and space, my hope that this aim, like I said, is to identify your own desired form of an on her terms response, your signature moves, so that you're not spinning out each time the headlines feel extra heavy, because they are and they will. And I just want to encourage you to know that whether it's instant, whether it's distant, whether you're at the front of the line or months or years down the road, whether you're giving mental, financial, spiritual, social resources and energy, all responses are valid responses. And I'm sharing it now because the best time to figure out how you want to show up is in a moment when you've had a chance to catch your own breath, not in the middle of the literal or metaphorical storm. So on that note, I'm actually thinking about creating a free workshop. It might be real time, it might be a private podcast, to create a space and share another framework that can actually help you build your own personal response plan so that you can know, yep, this is how I want to show up for my people. And you just have it ready to roll. And this is my menu. This is what I'm going to do. I know that this is my way that I can contribute, building an inner scaffolding that can set you up to feel steady and generous and genuinely useful in your lane at your pace in ways that actually matter to you. So if you'd like to be part of it or in the loop as it actually comes to life, then just reply with the word respond to any of my emails. And if this has sparked any new ideas or examples of how you want to show up, then feel free to share those with me too. In either case, I hope this message helps you just think about it and find a way to show up that feels doable and meaningful and yours, because this is certainly an interesting time to be alive with internet access. And I appreciate you doing your part from your corner of the world, wherever you are. In the meantime, I'm sending lots of love and aloha from here, and we'll talk soon. Okay, technically that was the end of the episode, but since you're still here, one, I'd love to thank you for spending part of your day with me, and two, I'd love to ask you if you would take 30 seconds, maybe 60, to leave a rating and review in your podcast app before you tap out today. If you've already done that, it's amazing. Please send me a screenshot so I can thank you personally, and know that sharing this episode with a friend has the same magical powers, and I deeply appreciate both. Also, in case you're listening to the end to see if I ever actually introduce myself, hi! My name is Nikki Elledge Brown. I'm the host and author of Naptime Empires and this here On Her Terms podcast. You can find me around the internet at Nikki Elledge Brown in most places, but what you may appreciate most is actually over at onherterms.com. It's what I call the insider library. It's where you can get inside scoop, first listen rights, email updates every time there's a new episode, and then special insider only bonus content. It's all over in our private feed. Okay, that's a wrap for real. I'll meet you in the next episode.